All right. Can an Aussie whiskey hold a candle to a single malt Scotch?
Let's find out.
That's one way to find out. Let's have a test with Starward Two-Fold.
Even sounds like a real bottle.
Right. So we just celebrated Aussie Day.
Right.
So I thought, what better time?
Most of us did.
Well, most of us, yeah.
There's always going to be some. Right?
We're here. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that. But what better time to fire up an Aussie whiskey?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going into this blind. I haven't had a real decent Aussie whiskey yet. I haven't tried them at all.
Okay.
This is a fresh palate for me too. So, so I'm excited. So Starward Two-Fold. Right, so 40%, as per usual, a distillery down in Melbourne, Victoria. About as Aussie as it gets. Fired up mid-2000s by David Vitale. Guess where?
Where David Vitale fired up his whiskey.
Yeah.
First,
just
David Vitale for me.
Well, just an Aussie bloke, right? So about as Aussie as it gets. Finds an old abandoned Qantas air hanger. Let's chuck it still in there. I think that's I can rocket fuel. No, so he fired up in there, as I said, mid-2000s, but a bit of rebranding and all the rest, moving around. He's moved from there over the years until Distill Adventures invested in him, which is part of Diageo. Right. We're hearing this name a lot. And then he started just booming, making a big international awards over in San Francisco, things like that. So they seem to be, again, Aussie whiskies haven't been around a long time, and these guys are quite young in their own right, but they seem to be making waves, so it's pretty cool. And I'm excited to try this because it's very unique the way that they've gone about what they're doing. So it says single malt whiskey, but a wheat and single malt whiskey.
Okay.
So a single malt whiskey isn't blended, but there's wheat whiskey in there, so it's blended.
So it's a blended single malt. I think I'll just make
wrap your head around that one. No, so Starward themselves make their own single malt whiskey.
Yeah.
And then they get, I think from New South Wales somewhere, a grain whiskey, and then they blend them together. So it is a blended,
right? But
it's just those two. One being a single malt whiskey made by Starward themselves.
Yeah, given the fact that we had 42 blended together last week. This is
a little bit more subtle, a bit more basic, right? So, but what I really like about these guys is the way that they age in their barrels. So what I actually don't know of any other whiskey mobs that do this. There could be plenty out there, but they age entirely in red wine barrels, but wet and uncharred red wine. Say that fucking 3 times fast.
An uncharred red wine. Wet and uncharred
let's break this down. So a wet barrel is, it's had wine in it, emptied. In the next day or two, they're putting whiskey in it. Okay. So it's still wet from the,
so
literally
they
just wet
bought
wood.
The barrel, drank the wine, said we can do better.
So, right off the bat, I can only assume you're copping a lot of those red wine flavours, and the barrels aren't charred. So that generally puts a lot of, filtering into the aging process, so it's not. So there could be a bit more tannins in there could be a bit more of this red wine flavour. I'm not sure what this is going to actually produce, so I'm excited to find out. This is probably their sort of tried and true general sort of whiskey, but they do some amazing other things I'd love to try. They've got Solera, which they do in sherry barrels instead of red wine, but they do ones where they take this and infuse honey into it.
Right.
They do one with ginger beer barrels. That'd be interesting. Fortified wine casks. They do pre-made cocktails. So these guys are sort of advertising for, this can be a straight sipper, or they do a lot of cocktail stuff.
Right.
Sort of like monkey shoulder and the likes. So they do like an old fashioned, just pour it over glass and away you go. And I've had that one before and it is amazing.
Okay.
But it's not straight up whiskey, so. So I'm excited.
There's a lot. I'm taking it in.
So I mean, yeah. So rattling the technical side of things off. So, one point to make, especially with Australian whiskies, they only have to be aged for 2 years. Unlike Scotch whiskies. I don't know if I've gone through this with you before, but just the heat in Australia,
right?
The wood in the barrels expands a lot and sucks a lot of that fluid into the wood, and then cools down and pushes it back in.
Right.
So that's what the aging process does.
Yeah.
Being in Australia, it's scorching freaking hot in the middle of the day and then can be freezing cold at night. So that process has happen a lot more as compared to say Scotland. Right, where it's a bit mellow all the time.
Cold to tepid.
Cold to a bit colder. Right. So that's why a lot of whiskies have to be aged by at least 3 years.
Right.
Australia only has to be 2, but I think these still are aged for 3 years. Okay. But that's a lot more of that wood flavours, and whatever was in there beforehand is going to soak into this a lot more and a lot faster. So for 3 years, it's going to, I would think, have a decent flavour punch,
That's right. They also seem to be going for anything and everything to pour it into a barrel. Wine, ginger beer, whatever.
Oh, well, that's what I like about whiskies and Scotch particularly, is it's so versatile because you can just put it into all sorts.
Yeah.
And then put it into one and then something different later on. And then just, it creates such a versatile, big flavour profile, right?
Yeah.
There's a big broad spectrum there. So it's fun to explore.
I'll be very interested in this one now.
Ooh.
Very sweet smelling.
It is sweet.
No.
With almost like a port sort of hint to it, didn't it?
A little bit. Which I say to, sound sophisticated, but you're better at this.
And I would say almost like a white bread or a toast, which I'm guessing is coming from the grain whiskey that's in that.
I don't know, you could be having a stroke. We just don't know.
My thumb doesn't work. Oh, that's amazing. You tasting?
I'll go for it.
Oh, wow.
That's gone down quite smooth. That's all right.
That's amazing. I was not expecting that. That back end is quite tannic. You're getting that sort of film on your tongue.
A little bit.
With that real red wine sort of flavour in that back end, I think. Well, it's like you drank a red wine half an hour ago and you still got that residue taste to it.
I wouldn't say that myself, because red wine to me tastes like vinegar. This is a lot nicer than that.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is so different. That is such a step away from, say, Scotch.
Yeah.
But that is pleasant.
That is nice.
That is
very nice.
Yeah, it will be hard to compare that to a Scotch or a bourbon of any type. That is a category in its own.
It does a little bit, yeah. I mean, that's where it seems to sit.
There's a lot of vanilla there. The more you go back to it, bit biscuity.
Definitely sweet.
Definitely. Absolutely, it's
lightly sugary.
Yes, like powdered sugar.
Powdered sugar. And all sugar powdered.
No, that's great. Like you get on your cream donuts with little powdered sugar. Icing sugar, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, well done, sir. Well done. Yeah, I think you're right with that. Yeah, it's nice and just smells so good as well.
Yeah, it's like biscuity, but the density to it too.
I don't know, I'd find that smell perfectly acceptable if I came home to the house and it was so light and easy, it's not, it's not sitting in the nose or anything like that. It's not sharp on the second.
Yeah, there's nothing sharp about it whatsoever. There's nothing harsh about it. Yeah, that back end's just a bit too tannic for me.
Yeah.
But outside of that, that's amazing. It's got red wine and a biscuit had a child and it grew into be a responsible adult. A sophisticated red wine
with a homemade biscuit.
With a bit of icing sugar on top.
With icing sugar, yes. That's what I'm going to suggest to my wife the next time she has a red wine. With icing sugar.
Yeah, sprinkle a little on top.
Yeah.
You'll have yourself a Starward.
That's right.
No, that's fun.
Oh, that's good. That's a nice one.
I enjoy that. As I said, that back end just a little. It sits there a bit. So again, I'm guessing that's because it's not the charred barrels. So you get a lot of that wood tannic sort of finish on it. But outside of that, like, so that is about $75 bucks in Australia, right?
$1 bucks, of course.
So
put it into bluey terms.
Yeah. So
our younger audience.
I thought that was just a universal currency now, right? Like everyone understands what that is.
Hey, listen, I signed a petition to change it to dollary dues.
$900 dues.
No, that's. I feel that's punching above its weight for that price.
Yeah,
like that is incredibly pleasant. I'd love to try the honey one now that I've tasted that. That's amazing. Nah, look, Starward. So you guys have done amazing. Like that's again for being so young, and obviously got to trying to get up and running and all the rest of it, and obviously things aren't aged for that long. That's amazing. Yeah, that is something so different. But yeah, I would absolutely keep one of these on the shelf, I think, because that is easy. Like there's nothing harsh, there's nothing potent.
I'd be very interested to see what they could do with 12 years.
Well, that'd be interesting and see, but they'd have to change it to another barrel to age it, because that'd just get too much, I think. Leaving it in just those wine barrels, it'd get too woody, too tannic, too oaky. It'd just be too harsh, I think.
Right.
So if they were to switch that out to, some charred finishing barrel, that might even just take that little back end off. Yeah, but outside of that, that's phenomenal.
No, I think that's good. I'm enjoying this. This is a good choice, sir.
I think the Aussies have held up. They haven't. Yeah, they haven't. Definitely haven't followed in anyone's footsteps, and they've sort of carved their,
they like
carved their own path. Yeah. Which a lot of I forgot to mention, like what they do at that distillery is keep everything local. So it's, I think, all the wineries down in Victoria where there's a lot.
Right.
All the ingredients are sourced within an hour's drive of that distillery, so it's all very local, which is always a plus. That's
that helps make it unique as well.
Exactly. So
if you source everything from locally, then it is all the same. Like it's all grown with the same water. It's all grown with the same.
And that, just knowing that adds a bit of character to what you're drinking, and no, that's amazing. I mean, rating, I don't know, as I said, like that back end's just a little tannic. I don't know how many glasses you could sit on that without until it starts becoming an issue. I think that's the only thing I can fault, to be honest. Outside of that, it's an easy 4 for me.
I think it's nice. It's a good sweet type of thing. I would say maybe a 3.5.
Yeah.
But, I like to be different.
So does Starward. Right. Yes. No.
I think well done to the lads
from Starward. You guys have done an amazing job, so keep it up.
As far as I can see, they only made 2 mistakes, selling to Diageo and getting rid of the Qantas hanger. All right? Who wouldn't want to distill whiskey in an old bomber? Like, come on. There's a B-52 bomber up in Darwin.
Right? Well done.
Well done, lads.
Yeah.
Very good.
Cheers.
That's it.